Relationship management is the key to unlocking your destiny. During the series entitled After I Did, Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. explores the connection between the quality of our life experiences and our relationship.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Wednesday, Relationship Wednesday. Of course, I have my beautiful wife here, Michelle, with me to continue on answering questions. Because, a couple weeks back, we answered a couple questions. We wanted to see if we could finish out the first round of questions that came in or for the Q&A to help better serve you. And again, our mission and our vision for Relationship Wednesday After I Did is just to really help people navigate the turbulence in the waters of relationships, because I like my pastor, Pastor Ron, he will always say, when he talk about relationships, he says that most of our hurts and our pains are not connected to a thing, it's connected to a person. And so, in a lot of times we can, he created a series called Shipwreck, and basically how relationships a lot of times can lead us in shipwreck. And so what do you do when you're shipwrecked? Like, how do you work from that after you were on a certain destination, the storm came through, carried you, messed up the boat to, the dream. How do I pick up the pieces and move forward? Like that was the main vision, just to give people tools on how to navigate relationships after we've gone through. Because understand, we live this life long enough, we're going to go through stuff. Life going to tag. Nobody's perfect. We all going to make mistakes. We all got issues, stuff we're working through. Sometimes some issues are time release belief. What I mean is, you ain't even know you were going to struggle with an issue until you got married. You ain't even know you're going to struggle with an issue until you got into certain relationships. Sometimes there were things in us that we didn't even realize were going to happen until we got into a relationship. And then sometimes we got good people who have issues, didn't quite know how to manage. I've had friends where they grew up, they felt abandoned, so they lived for them. And so pretty much they came to a relationship taking advantage, and we thinking they the bad person. I realized that they just didn't know how to work out the issue of knowing that they were people really for them. So many different things. And what happens is, that's one thing I've learned. Issues doesn't know logic. What I mean by that is that when you've been hurt by something or you've been wounded by something, a lot of times the Bible says, let no bitter root get in you, because it will spring up and defile many. What does that mean? That means that when I'm hurting, if I'm dealing with something that hasn't been resolved in my heart, sometimes my hurt can tag good people around me. And so what happens is the people who got tagged by it will sometimes take the hurt and then they'll defile other people from it, like the cycle continues. And so how do you navigate those things and create these cycles? And so we got to have tools to manage these things, stuff that just comes with living life, just that comes part of it. And so one thing about relationships I want to make sure that we do is that you never become bitter, but you become better. So you have a choice. In other words, relationships can make you bitter or it can make you better. It's all in how you're processing the shipwreck. So I'll give you an example. I'm talking about, you had a case in the Bible from the book of Ruth, where Ruth had a mother-in-law named Naomi. And so she had two daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah. And so what happened was, because Naomi, they moved from Bethlehem, Judah, they went to a place called Moab. And her and her husband built a life there. And so what happened was, she had two sons, and they both got married. One to Ruth, and the other got married to Orpah. And so Naomi's husband, he had died in Moab, and both of her sons died. Now isn't that rough? Like, where you lose your husband and your two sons in the land of Moab, trying to build a life. And then now you're in a situation where the people that's your family now are your daughter-in-laws. And so, and there's nobody, but your immediate family is gone. So you kind of adopted these girls as your daughters in a sense, because by marriage. And then so Orpah said, so what Naomi said was, in picking up the pieces. So she said, I'm going back home to Bethlehem, Judah. She's going back to her home country. So now Moab, actually, they translate, one of the definitions of Moab in the Hebrew means bitter place. So Orpah, now Bethlehem, Judah means word and praise. So in other words, going back to a place of word, meaning something good and praise, celebrating something good. Like it went back to a place of better and praise, celebration. So in other words, that it, those representations, meaning that they went to a place of something that's going to make them better from what they went through versus staying in Moab, making you bitter from what you went through. So what happened was Orpah said, so Naomi said, I'm going back to my home country, Bethlehem, Judah. And so Orpah said, nah, I'm staying here in Moab. I'm going to go here and just try to make a life for myself, whatever, because, the whole situation made a bit of. Now, Ruth ended up going with her because she's not from Bethlehem, Judah, but she went with Naomi. And so as a result of that, that's how she met Boaz. As she went back as she served in mother-in-law. In other words, even though they lost their husbands, she ended up going back to word and praise. In other words, she found a way to come better from it. In Ruth's life, next season of her life was 1,000 times better than what she lost. And it's now with Orpah, they really don't talk much about her because she lived in her loss. In other words, she let the loss get in and it made her bitter. So what am I saying from that story is that we all have choices in how we're going to, when life tags, I can either let it make me bitter or let me make me better. So are you going to go back to the word in celebration? Or are you going to go back to, being critical and talk about what you lost versus talking about your next opportunity? All right. So that's just something be aware of. And that's the whole point of Relationship Wednesdays. But anyway, we're going to get into these questions. And so we want to continue. So we finished out last time that we spoke was question number 3. What's the importance of including your partner in your spiritual life as well as your personal life? To develop fruitful intimacy, what would that look like? So hopefully we answered that question the best way we knew how. Because again, when people are asking these questions, we don't always understand where people are coming from. So we read the question, I can only interpret what I think you're asking. So we're just asking in line to that. So hopefully, even if we don't answer the right way, maybe the answer we do give you could be helpful. So I just, put that caveat there, just to make sure that, we want to better serve you. All right. So let's jump right into it. So question number 4 was, what would you do differently to prepare yourself for your romantic relationship? And so when they say romantic relationship, of course, that can mean so many things. But in our church context, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say church context. In our believers context, in other words, when we live under the values of the word, we're talking, when we say romantic relationship, we're basically talking about people who are preparing themselves and looking to take that next step of marriage. Because, we do understand that people have romantic relationships outside of marriage. I get that. And we can maybe talk about that side too. But at the same time, we'll talk about also in the context of marriage, just to, give this some context on how to ask this, because we know that, again, a lot of people have so many different views on marriage, this and that, courthouses and the heart. Hey, whatever it may be. But anyway, so let's see if we can break this down. So what would you do differently to prepare yourself for romantic relationship? So the question would be, which is fine, is that one thing I realized, like it's from myself, if I was to do anything differently, I wouldn't personally, because I don't ever want to live in regret. I'm going to tell you why. You can only make the choices of who you are. In other words, I can't help but be me. So in other words, I would have to be me now to make different choices. So in other words, who I was at 22 years old, that 22-year-old self would make the same choice. So in other words, the 46?
Yes, that's how
The 46-year-old me, of course, would make a different decision, because what I want in life at 46 is different than what I wanted at 22. So the seasons of life makes it a little tougher to always answer that question, because a lot of times you're always going to answer relative to who you are at the time, and who you are, a lot of times will decide who you want to be with and how you're choosing things in life. So that's one of the things that we have to, be aware of, because then what happens is you got to be careful with these type of questions, because number one is that you don't want to live in regret over the choice you made. And sometimes it's easy to do because we feel like we could have made better choices. But one of the things I would say is when you get into any serious relationship, always surround yourself with good counsel. I think that's where if anything, always make sure you surround yourself with people who has good perspective on it, because sometimes with the emotions going and your feelings going, sometimes and then where we are, sometimes we need good people around us to help us decide who we should be connected to and who we shouldn't. And sometimes we go into it what I think, but sometimes you had to have good counsel who you trust. And I think a lot of times we don't surround ourselves with good counsel and get other feedback. In other words, what happens a lot of times, by the time people get to us, they already decided to get married and they already did their own homework on it, and they feel like, but at the same time, and again, who am I to tell you not? Because that's not my job. But if you was come and ask and say, or find good people in your life that can help you be able to, that know you, understand what you're about. So, and one thing is that you want to make sure you're making decisions around people who know your purpose, know what you're about, understanding, and help you work through making sure that they're a good fit for your purpose, for your personality, for your makeup, all those type of things. You want to get those well-rounded things, because I think a lot of times when people get into romantic relationships, it's not that they made bad choices per se. It's just that they didn't get any counsel, and because they didn't get good counsel, that's why there was no safety. Because in a multitude of counsel, there's safety. And so now can God still make it work? Sure, He can. But I'm just saying that's what I would say. So I guess anything you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. Also, don't let if you can help it. Most people let their flesh decide what's going on, and it's like, oh, I feel this way, or I feel that way, and then you're letting your feelings run you, and feelings change. So you definitely don't want to do that. And then you want to also be in a relationship long enough to see them in different lights. How are they when they're angry or upset, when things don't go their way, and all these kind of things, because people change in different settings, different lights, and can you handle them being a certain way in a different setting or a different light? That would determine, because if they're going to be like this, and you might not like that, and that might not be something that you want in your life, for the long term. So you got to make sure you see them you're with them long enough to see them in different aspects of their life. That's what I have written down.
Okay, yeah. So I guess and I'm gonna go back to something I said in the other, podcasts and the other ones I shared is the only thing I would say doing something different is, which I feel like everybody should do, is take time to become more self-aware. So not self-conscious, self-aware. So there's a difference. Self-conscious means you're focusing on things that's wrong with you, and you're more you're more aware of what may not be right with you versus what's right with you. But what I'm saying is self-aware, being more aware of what you like, what makes you go, what makes you tick, like how do you work. So, and a lot of times because we're not self-aware of, and just a little bit on what Michelle was saying, that sometimes those feelings can blind you to self-awareness. And so we want to make sure that we stay self-aware, so that way I can say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and being honest with yourself, because a lot of times we go into something and we overlook certain things. And see, I'm saying, when you're dating or just having, non-strong relationships, it can be self-aware. And then also another thing I would say is this, another thought that came to mind is this. Let's see how I can put this. When you're dating, you date because of the friendship, which is another type of relationship. When you get married, that's a partnership. So in other words, we were drawn to each other because of similarities and because we could be friends. A lot of times that's when we date. But then what happens is the relationship shifts and you become partners, and you got to talk about the partnership. So in other words, that's the reason why we were great when we were dating, but now that we got married, it's a huge issue now, because what I needed you from as a friend, I need different things from you as a partner. And so, and a lot of times when we're not self-aware, we can, blur the lines, and then therefore the communication breaks down and this and that. Then it just turns into a lot of different problems, because I didn't understand the rules of dating versus, somebody going to a serious relationship to partnership. Like, they're two totally different arenas. And so you got to understand the rules of both in order to be able to navigate that. So a lot of times that's what happens when we're dating. Dating has different type of rules, and dating works because usually when you date and under those things, and it just comes to nature. Like, there's no way you could do it. Usually when you date, everybody sees the best version of you. So, you're always taking a shower, you're always, dressing up, putting your cologne perfume on. I'm just saying, when we date, we're always, a lot of times in that context, we always give our best selves when we're dating. But usually when we start becoming partners and moving that life, then we get more into, you see me, you don't always see the best me, and then seeing those things. So those are two different worlds. So I'm just saying that you have to be aware that what you're going to get from dating is not what you're going to get in a partnership. And I think that a lot of times reason why we don't make the right decisions and get the right counsel, because we choose off of what the dating experience has been like versus what the partnership experience is going to be like. And so in other words, it's how we are, navigating that. And so, and you got to be able to talk through, your goals, what you want. And that's one thing. Another thing I would say is, it's, if you can be, the best thing about being self-aware, now you know how to have good conversations about talking through things down the road. Meaning that, this is what I want for my life. This is what I'm planning. I'm into fitness. Are you into fitness? I'm into this. Are you into that? Like, I want things I want in life requires me to be this go-getter. Can you handle that? Like, these are the type of things you got to talk about, because now as friends, that's not as necessary. But when you become partners and working together, those things become necessary to talk about. So a lot of times, those are the things that, being different is really working more on being self-aware, so I can have good conversations, and then also understanding the rules between dating and in marriage. And then also the last thing I just had it was I can't think of it, just left my mind that quick. But anyway, those are the main things there. Just really having those honest conversations. Oh, counsel, that was the last one. Counsel, finding good people that have been there, walked through some things, and be able to properly process the relationship. So hopefully, you want to add anything to that before we go on to the next question?
Just make sure that you understand, like he said, that the rules do change, and know that, again, he said this once before, not this time, but you're dating that representative. So again, if you're dating long enough, eventually that representative will fade away, and you'll see who you're really dating. And you just got to know, if you end up marrying this person, is this who you want? Because the representative is going to show you all their best side. Everything is great and roses, and but there's another side to them that is not trying to get you. Once you're married, they have you. So if you don't want to marry a couch potato, or somebody's you're in the wanting to do stuff all the time, and all they want to do is be on the couch. But when y'all were dating, we used to do stuff all the time, but that was their representative. They were just trying to get you. So be real with it. Both of you need to be real and say, hey, I really like doing this, that, and the other. Don't just show your representative, or, like I said, see them in different lights. Date them long enough so you can see, because the representative was only going to last for so long. So.
Okay, good stuff. So question number 5, how do you know when to release a friend from a relationship? And I feel like that's the easy question to answer. This is probably one of the easiest ones, I feel like. That's good. We're one of the easiest ones to answer. The Bible says, write the vision down, make it plain, so he that read can run with it. Another scripture in Proverbs that says, where there's no vision, the people perish. Perish means discipline. So in other words, all vision brings boundaries. So of who should be in your life, who should not be in your life. So what happens is, it's when you're clear on your vision and you find out that their lifestyle or what they're doing don't fit the vision that God gave you, then that's when you know it's time to move on. So in other words, it's not you cutting them off. It's the vision for your life that makes the changes. And so a lot of times, for example, if you have a vision for getting in shape, and all you've been doing with them is going out eating unhealthy and got in that situation where now I got to, cut you off because me hanging out with you disturbs my vision of getting in shape. And so I love you, but I got to make this boundary of the relationship or the friendship in order for me to accomplish my vision. So a lot of times we are not clear on our vision. So the clearer you on your vision, and vision can mean so many type of things in all type of scenarios. Maybe we can work through, a couple of different ones. Because I know sometimes we can talk about, toxic people who are toxic, where they just not healthy for your mental health, for your faith, or like us, people of faith. Sometimes we got to cut people off just because I'm trying to be more of a positive faith believing person, but every time I talk to you, it's always negative and this and that. And no matter what I say to you, you just always got to be negative and see the worst case. So I gotta put some boundaries there. It's like, I love you, but it's not. But what's the boundary for? My vision. I want to be a person of faith. I want to trust God and grow in my faith in God. But I can't, because you're always, pulling me in a different direction than the vision I have for my spiritual walk and my spiritual development. So the day you know that y'all are on two different pages as far as the vision, that's when you know. And again, all relationships don't have to be totally cut off. Some relationships may have to be a readjustment in how much time you give to it.
Right.
So, So anyway, let you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't necessarily have to cut them off unless everything about that person, like, you get around them, it's like, you can tell sometimes it's like, I don't even want to be around you. If you got those kind of feelings, you definitely need to cut that off. But there are sometimes you just get into conversations and it's just like, okay, like he said, you just can't be around that person or talk to that person as much because, if, every time y'all get around each other and y'all get into conversations, it's just negative, and you're trying to live a positive life. Doesn't mean, you might not be saying I want to cut you off completely, but yeah, just maybe we'll hang out. We won't hang out every day or whatever, maybe once a month, or something, you just less, because you don't want anything that's going to pull you down. If you can't pull them up, you don't want them pulling you down. So if you feel like you're being pulled down, if just making it less time isn't going to do it, then that's when you need to cut it off.
So this is something Jesus said, and this is in, I believe it's Matthew 10. So we talking about God is the God of love, which is so true, and we don't, bring everybody together. But it's something Jesus said, and he talked about this in the context of relationships, meaning family, friends, all those type of things. Excuse me. And he says, "I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword." And then he says, "Father against daughter." Mother against daughter, father against son. He said sometimes your enemy's going to be in your own household. What is he saying? Jesus saying is, what I'm about to put in you is going to shift your vision for your life to the point where it's going to cause friction with your family, where they may not be on the same page as you. Right. And so, he never says that, how to cut it off, but he's basically saying that, he's basically saying is that your vision is going to bring division amongst the people you've been in fellowship with. So the whole point so the main thing I'm saying here is this. So how do you know when to cut off when to release a friend from a relationship is when you're clear on the vision. When God puts a vision in you and their attitudes or their vision don't fit, or your vision don't even fit with theirs. Like, it can be on one side. But when usually what happens is vision drives relationships. When the vision is different, the relationship really can't, because how can one walk together unless they be agreed? So me and two walk unless they be agreed, which means that the vision has to be able to drive the relationships and the friendships. So meaning that friends, like the iron sharpen iron. If we can't sharpen each other, that's the vision for a friendship. If we can't do that, then there's no need to be friends. Like, we can't, because the vision of a friendship is not even there. So be clear on your vision and let the vision decide who should be released, who should be in your life in different ways. Your vision decides that. All right. Well, we're going to hit the pause button there, and hopefully you got something out of that. And so we're going to close here and pick up the next questions next week. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. for this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After I Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues this discussion of After I Did.